right here on WWL and also on WWL.com, the game of the week. But this hour, interesting topic, a very different outlook on education. Today I got one 3-year-old granddaughter. She can work an iPad better than I can, and she's been doing it a while, too. A lot of school districts, they're spending millions of dollars equipping children with all the latest gadgets, the high-tech stuff. Kids even learn how to do basic mathematics or arithmetic like we used to. Is this technology hurting or helping kids? Well, June Campbell of the Campbell Christian Academy is kind of a throwback. And if you remember the scene of Little House on the Prairie, what the little red schoolhouse looked like with the little, well, I guess she doesn't use slate and chalk anymore. Maybe she does. I don't know. But she can tell us because she joins us now as a special guest to talk about the Campbell Christian Academy and their philosophy. June, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
June, explain.
And no, I don't use slate and chalk.
No, y'all moved up to paper and pen and pencil.
Absolutely.
Very modernistic. If you would, June, tell us about your philosophy on education these days.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Well, you were talking first about the children and technology and so forth, and I want, before I ever even get started, I want to qualify that I am in no way against technology. I love technology. I have an iMac. I use my laptop. I use my iPad, my iPhone every day in business, and those are important things, but not in the classroom. I heard you say you had a granddaughter who is 3 years old, who can work an iPad better than you can, and I've seen it happen myself. But it doesn't belong in the classroom, and that's not the way kids should learn. They've got to use their brain computers first. And what I mean by that is that children have got to learn the basics. They've got to learn first things first, and that's reading and math. And they've got to get those things down, because if they have those tools in their toolboxes, so to speak, then they can do anything. And they're not learning it properly by playing with iPads and computers.
Tell me about the Campbell Christian Academy, your private school. What is it like? What age is it open? When do the kids start? When do they leave? And what goes on in the classroom?
Okay. Well, let me give you a little history. I taught in the public schools here in Texas for 10 years. I taught high school English, and I saw every year the kids coming into school. They couldn't read. They couldn't read well or comprehend. They couldn't write, put their thoughts down in any form of logical sequential order. They, even in high school, were counting on their fingers, counting in their heads. They didn't have the basics. And so I taught our children at home in the evenings while I was teaching school during the day. And I taught them reading by phonics, and I taught them math, where they had to learn and memorize the facts, just like I did when I was a child. And as time went on and I finally got out of teaching and began, I had a neighbor that asked me if I would teach her little girl, because at that point my 3-year-old was reading the newspaper, flying through the newspaper, and everybody in the neighborhood was just aghast over this. And I ended up agreeing to teach a neighbor's child, and then she told everybody else in the neighborhood, and before I knew it, I had loads of kids and couldn't even teach out of my home anymore. Pardon me. So we used different churches let us use their Sunday school rooms for years, and then finally, 14 years ago, we built our own little red schoolhouse. And but I've been doing this. I've been teaching for 40 years. 30 of it at Campbell Christian Academy. I've taught about 10,000 children in my life how to read and do math. And the way we do it today at Campbell Christian Academy is the way we did it then. Children have short attention spans. My own did too. And, a college-age student is only expected to go to school, 15 to 17 hours a week. So there's no way these little ones can go to school 40-hour weeks. They can't do it. So we teach the children in small classes of disciplined children, And we have these kids come for we start them as early as 3 years old, and we go through the 6th grade. The 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds come at one time, and I only teach them an hour and a half 2 times a week. Isn't that amazing? And they learn to read the old-fashioned way by phonics. I use a phonics method called pure phonics. I wrote it myself, and by the way, I needed my computer for that. And actually, I put it on iBooks too, so we really went high tech with that. And I teach them just little small amounts. Our motto is bite-sized pieces add up to a big meal. And they do. If you teach a child just a little bit and they master it, and then you teach them a little bit more and they master it, before long, they've learned a lot. And not only that, but they're learning how to learn. They're learning a process of learning. They're not being, these schools, all of them, public, private, they all do the same thing. They've got a curriculum, and they go from point A to point B, and they point A to point Z actually during the school year, and they, a child either gets it or they don't, but they're going to go on without it. But not at Campbell Christian Academy. We stick with it until it's mastered, and once it's mastered, then they get to go on.
Well, June, what other outside education, is that the only schooling that they're getting, is just less than 2 hours a day, a couple of times a week, or are they going to another school, or is that it? Is that the only school?
That's all they need. That's all they need. This is I said this to one one reporter. I said, it's really out of the box. And he said, did you hear what you just said, that this is really out of the box? And I said, yes, I did. It really does. It's really a kind of a strange thing to say, because this is really the way children always learned before. Sorry, I'm suffering with Dallas allergies. But this is the way the kids learned in the founding days of America. This is how they learned. They learned, and most of them learned at home or in small schoolhouses, but you just learn a little bit. You can't expect children to learn everything at one time. You just have to remember that motto of ours, first things first. How much science can a child do if he can't read? How much history can a child learn if he can't read? How much science can a child learn if he, say chemistry, for example, if he doesn't know algebra? None. And even back to the computer issue, the technology issue, yeah, they can learn to swipe the iPad and swipe the screen back and forth, and they can push colorful dots and triangles and squares and learn their shapes and things like that. But they really can't learn anything if they can't read and really study.
June, I'm getting some text in that in agreement with you. One says, I totally agree with your speaker about not using iPads in schools. They can't learn to write correctly if they are texting the number 2, the letter U, the letter B, etc. Another says, I agree 100% with this lady. Technology is actually dumbing us down. That comes from Jeff. But I'm wondering, at what point does the high-tech stuff come in? Apparently this is in addition to using the high technology things too, the basics of reading and writing and arithmetic. But at what point during their time from 3 to up to the 6th grade to where they start using those other things? Do they do it at the same time they're attending your classes?
Well, I don't do it in school, period. It's from 3 years old through the 6th grade. Technology is what's not important right now. In those formative years, they've got to get this reading and writing and grammar and spelling and math down. And those are the important things. Now, we all know that they've got computers at home, and they watch their parents, and they watch their, maybe they watch their big brothers or their cousins or whoever doing it. They're going to pick up lots and lots of ways of using it. But when it comes to working as far as schoolwork goes on it, I think that when they get to middle school, that they will be able to start applying some of the things that that we've learned. They're such good students. They're such good students by the time that they leave us that they've got all these things memorized. They've got they're great readers. They're great writers. They can put their thoughts down in logical sequential order. They can do math that's levels and levels and levels ahead of the other children at school. So all of this technology just falls right into place. Let me give you an example. My daughter, the one I was talking about a while ago that was 3 reading the newspaper, I went ahead and taught both our son and our daughter at home. I didn't even know you could homeschool, so that's how far off I am from being some, homeschoolers don't exactly always have a great name. There's some wonderful homeschoolers, don't get me wrong. I know many of them, but there's some that are don't give homeschooling such a great name. But I worked really, really hard with our children, and I thought that I had to teach them all the subjects. I thought I had to teach them everything because I was in the public school mode at that time. And my wonderful husband came into me one day and he said, "What are you thinking, or are you thinking? You're spending 8, 9 hours a day working with the kids on all these different subjects, and they're not having any fun and they're not learning anything. Throw it out, go back to the basics, what you were doing before, and just make them great at reading, writing, grammar, and math." And that was one of the most wonderful days of my life. I did exactly that. And so when our daughter was 14, I had done everything that I knew how to do with her. My husband suggested that we take her to a local community college. They tested her. She went into college algebra that summer and made an A at 14. She got 60 hours of A's at the community college after that. And then SMU here in Dallas, Southern Methodist University, gave her a full academic scholarship for her junior and senior year. She graduated cum laude from the Cox School of Business. Our son did the same thing, only he graduated from Southeastern Oklahoma State University and majored in aviation, and he's a pilot in the United States Marines. So I brag on them, not because there was anything special about them, but that they learned at an early age how to learn. They learned how to spell. They learned how to write. They learned their math so that when they went into those college classes, they hadn't had any technology. They hadn't had any big name testing or any of that stuff. They went in there and they knew how to learn, and they were so far ahead of everybody else because they had, again, I keep using the same term, the tools in their toolboxes.
June, I love your philosophy. I agree with you 100%. Unfortunately, not everyone has access to send their children to a Campbell Christian Academy. When we come back after this break, maybe you could give us some suggestions. Let the schools do their thing, but at home, maybe you can apply some of these same principles and educational techniques to give them what they need as far as the basics. Our guest this morning, June Campbell of the Campbell Christian Academy. Excuse the pun, but she believes in old school. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. No iPads, no computers. And doing it for a much shorter classroom day than any school. It's got some fantastic results. Over 10,000 kids have gone through a school. And, June, I'm getting just a ton of text, and nobody is disagreeing with you. In fact, one of them even suggesting you be the head of the new school curriculum for the entire nation. And the only reservations anyone has is that, certainly they say at some point they've got to get good computer skills because to get by in today's world with email and texting and computers, yes. But still, what you do is very important, and I know you've only got you for a limited time, so the most important thing I think I could ask you is we don't have Campbell Christian Academies all across the country. What is the alternative for making sure kids get good reading, writing, mathematical skills, including the phonics, on their own? Should they do that as a portion of homeschooling when they're not in a normal classroom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was thinking about this during the commercial break. I've been there and had this happen to me too, that some point in my life, I needed my kids to be in a place, in a school where they were, because I had to work at that time. So I know that there are a lot of parents that are in that position, and in today's world, both moms and dads pretty much work. And so the schools kind of become a babysitting place. But even if that's the case, or if it's not the case, you can help, and you need to help, and you must help. And the first things that parents need to do are find out, can my child really read? And, that requires sitting down with your child, reading. And if he's stumbling, if he can't recall what he's read, then you've got to take the bull by the horns and do something about it. How do you do something about it, you ask? Well, if you don't mind me telling what my program is and sort of an advertisement, I'll be happy to tell you. But I've written a program that's called Pure Phonics, P-U-R-E Phonics. And it begins with as early as 3 years old, teaching them just the basic sounds. Pure Phonics 2 goes all the way into some much, much higher level phonics. And by the time the kids get through, they can read anything. And I wrote this as I was teaching my own children, and the problem was that I couldn't figure out, how am I going to tell people how to make these sounds? And so I had a professional videographer video me teaching the lessons. And so the book comes with a DVD of just little mini lessons of what I do here at Campbell Christian Academy. So that could be extremely helpful for people all over the nation. In fact, it's on iBooks as well, so people all over the world are buying it.
June, it's very ironic that you use high technology equipment to be able to bring back the basics and the very important teaching, but that's exactly
really
what's
is.
going on. June, I'm up against the news, and I wish I could keep you on much, much longer. I'm getting a lot of comments and questions about what you do. Give us the website where people can find out more about your philosophy in your school.
Sure. It's Campbell, C-A-M-P-B-E-L-L, ChristianAcademy.com. Or they can go to our publication website and see the phonics books and some of the other publications that we're working on right now, and that is pure-publications.com.
All righty, and we have that here, and we'll put it up on the website in case someone missed it. June, thanks so much.
Our Facebook page, too. We always have information there, too. So thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
No, thank you for imparting some very important information to our audience. We appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good weekend. Thank you. That's June Campbell.